Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and it's great to see such a good turnout here. I'll have a traditional Gaelic welcome, especially we've got a guest here from the United States. So, Kid Meo Falche, Gudanachin, that's 100,000 welcomes to Edinburgh. So, thanks for coming all the way down here. Some of you, I believe, from Shetland. Where's the Shetland contingent? Are they here yet? Have you landed? And aren't we glad it wasn't last Saturday, eh? And I hope those of you who are going to be here for the whole day don't get distracted with rugby scores and football matches and other things that are on here. So it's great to see you here, and a special welcome to our speakers. John Swinney needs no introductions, the Deputy First Minister, who has come all the way down from Perthshire this morning and tells me he hasn't taken the kids for childcare purposes. They're well organised in Perthshire today. And Lindsay, we're going to see your children soon, or former children. I think she's having withdrawal symptoms. She's just retired as a head teacher. And I'm going to make a hash of this pronunciation. Marian Nieves. Is that okay? Good. Now, by the way, this whole conference, and particularly this session, is being live streamed, which, just to let you know, it's being live streamed, and for some of us who've got a face for radio, that's a bit of a challenge, you know. So, but I know the man who's actually doing the filming, and he does owe me a favour. I actually gave him his first appointment as a teacher, so I'm sure he's going to give me the best shots. Could I ask that your phones are at least on silent? If you're one for social media, there's the hashtag for today's event, hashtag NPFS Scott 18, and I'm saying that because, of course, those people who are picking us up on live stream may well want to follow the Twitter feed as well. There isn't a fire drill planned today, so if the fire alarms do go off, the Dynamic Air staff will escort us to the nearest fire exits, but hopefully we won't have any scares like that. This room will be used today for one of the workshops. It's the workshop for, this is Biosphere Green, so it's the Children's Aid NYC workshops will be down here. Other than this session today and those workshops, we won't be back in this room, so please remember to take all your stuff with you when you leave. And that's a wee hint as well. Have you signed up for your workshops? Because if you haven't, please do so when we go back upstairs for coffee at 11:45. What I like about this conference venue is upstairs you can have the marketplace right where you get your coffee and your lunch. And by the way, lunch here normally is pretty good, so that's not a bad thing as well. But there's a fantastic marketplace. People were here at 8:30 setting up their stands. So for those of you, and I see some of you here, thanks very much for actually contributing to the conference. So without too much ado, what I would like to do next is just explain how we're hoping to run this morning. And a lot of that depends on you as delegates. Once we've had some entertainment, we're going to get into a dialogue with our speakers. You know, traditionally at a conference, somebody will stand up and give their 10-15 minutes worth and take a few questions, and then that'll be that. We want to have a bit of a more relaxed conversation. It's a Saturday, you've all had a busy week. Thanks for giving up your time to come here. So let's have a conversation with John and Lindsay and Marian Evans, each of whom will speak for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up, and I'll try and take us through that as chair through to 11:45. Okay? So could I can't see our pupils from Castleview. Are they here? Are they about to make their entrance? Lindsay, where are the troops? I think they're going to come and sing from here, so you might want to sit down. Here they are. Now, I believe this is a performance that they take round the capital, so we're Really looking forward to this. How are you, young man?
Pretty good.
That's great. Brilliant. Okay, Lindsay, over to you and your kids.
Actually, can I introduce Scarlett Palmer, who is our principal teacher, who's brought them along on a Saturday morning today. Scarlett, do you want to come sit down here, okay? You're in charge today, sweetheart. There we go. Like, move on a wee bit. Right, that's perfect.
I extend a warm welcome to all who are here this morning. We are very proud to be pupils of this very successful school, Castleview Primary. We are positive role models to Craig Miller, Edinburgh, in Scotland. We are delighted to have been invited to deliver to the National Parent Forum of Scotland. Working with parents is very important if a school is to be successful, and at Castleview, parents are part of a learning community and our school family. Members of our own parent council are present today and help support our teaching staff with literacy, numeracy, topic work, educational excursions and fundraising.
Many years ago, in 2006, Miss Watt, our previous head teacher, approached the Start Scotland and asked if Castleview could be tour guides for Craigmillar Castle. She had seen tour guides in operation at Linlithgow Palace when she had been a young teacher. They agreed to provide help with the script and our beautiful costume. Here is our beautiful castle, a hidden gem in our Craigmillar community.
At first, no one believed that we could deliver this project, but our hard work paid off, and now we deliver tours to schools and groups across Scotland. We are a wonderful example of curriculum for excellence, delivering high-quality education to others, telling them about Craigmillar's rich cultural history.
Sometimes like today, it is not possible to get to our castle, so we deliver the virtual tour. It's usually delivered to busy VIPs, just like you.
Yes, and we have delivered to the First Minister of Scotland, Miss Surgeon, and we have appeared on national television. We hope that you enjoy this virtual tour and that one day you can come and see the glory of Craigmillar Castle, the castle it gives its name to, Castleview Primary School.
Good morning. I am Sir Simon Preston, head of the household and loyal subject to Mary Queen of Scots.
Good morning. I am Lady Elizabeth, wife to Sir Simon and the grandest lady in Craigmillar.
Good morning. I am Davy, Sir Simon's steward and manager of his business.
Good morning. I am Mary, Lady Elizabeth's maid.
Good morning. I am the constable of this castle and I keep it safe.
Good morning. I'm a member of this household, and I also make sure the servants are always busy.
Good morning. I am a member of this household and I assure the lands are well managed.
Good morning. I'm a high-ranking female member of this household and I oversee the running of prestigious events.
Good morning. I am also a high-ranking female member of this household. I ensure that the provisions are always plentiful.
Now you know who we are. Welcome to Craigmillar Castle, everyone.
We are the junior tour guides and we will be taking you on a virtual tour of the castle today. We will use this PowerPoint to show you the key points we take visitors to. Please be aware that this is only a selection of the many wonders we perform at our beautiful castle.
We are going to play characters from the past when we take you on our tour. We're going to play people who lived and worked here during the time of Mary Queen of Scots.
In a moment, you will meet Sir Simon Preston and Lady Elizabeth Preston and two of their favourite servants. We'll be playing people from their household.
Come with us now and we'll introduce you to them and begin our tour.
But before we move on, please take another look at Craigmillar Castle. You will see the first wall which surrounds the castle from any possible enemy invaders. It is called the curtain wall.
From the first curtain wall, we take you to the second curtain wall to meet the members of our household.
We often attract large crowds during our tours. Often people just come to see the castle, but when they find us, they join in. People have often said that they learn so much more from the tour guides than they do in a normal guidebook.
We pretend that Sir Simon travelled through time and landed in the present. We knock on a large door and shout, "Are you there, Sir Simon?"
I always hate landing. Dust me down a bit, please, Davy. Mary, you can dust down Lady Elizabeth. This time travelling is an awfully messy business.
Let me help you, sir. Sir Simon, Lady Elizabeth, I can tell you that we have landed in the year 2018.
Dear me, that's a long way from our time. Now let me just count how long it's been. Let's see.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We've travelled almost 500 years, ma'am. We are at the second curtain wall and we see so many visitors. It is hard to tell if they are friends or foe. Constable, call the constable.
I'm the constable of Craigmillar Castle. It's my job to make sure it is kept secure. Who goes there, friend or foe? Only friends of Sir Simon and Lady Elizabeth Preston may proceed. If you wish to proceed, repeat after me. I'm a friend to the Prestons of Craigmillar. Well?
You are safe, my lord and lady. They are friends. They have simply come to find out more about Craigmillar Castle and life during our own time.
I see, but why didn't you say so? Welcome to Craigmillar Castle, everyone. I am Sir Simon Preston. This is my lovely wife, Lady Elizabeth Preston. Davy here is my most trusted and favourite servant. Mary is Lady Elizabeth's maid. My lady, seeing as we have come so far, I suppose we should show these strangers some hospitality and show them around the old place then.
A splendid idea. Where shall we begin?
Well, as we're at the outer wall, I suggest we talk about our special curtain.
What Sir Simon's referring to is this big wall that defends our castle from any possible invaders.
We're terribly important, you know, friends of Her Majesty Mary Queen of Scots herself, so we must protect ourselves from our enemies.
Come on then, let's show them around our splendid castle and see for ourselves how the old place is looking in 2018. Good folk of my household, lead us into the Tower House.
Welcome to the hall of Craigmillar Castle. This is where we hold our banquets, celebrations, meetings, and of course, trials. You'll hear more about them in a moment. Oh, it looks very different to my time. You can still see the grandeur, of course, but the colours are quite different.
That's right, these walls were plastered and painted in bright colours. This was one of the finest homes in Scotland.
When we take children's toys into the Tower House, we play a fun game with them. We won't do this today, so you can relax.
We are such a wealthy and important family that we even have people make our fish pond in the initial of our family name.
But the fish pond also had a practical use. Servants would go out fishing for the family's dinner.
From the top of the Tower House, you can see the rolling countryside around the castle. Many hunting expeditions would set out on fine days, and horse riders would ride for miles.
Mary Queen of Scots felt that the countryside reminded her of her beloved France, so she decided to name the area Little France. The Royal Edinburgh Hospital stands on the Little France site to this day and is visible from the Tower House walls.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to move you along. We're coming to the end of our tour, but there is one more place we would like to show you. To see this place, we must go right down to the depths of the castle. Can you guess where we are going?
The castle prison, a dark, damp, and terrible place. Are you brave enough? Are you sure? Then follow us.
This certainly isn't part of the castle I would ever visit.
Well, I can assure you, ma'am, that hasn't changed much, though it doesn't smell as bad as it used to.
Before we lead you out into the daylight again, many people ask us on our time travels about ghosts and mysteries. There is one famous Craigmillar mystery which Mary will tell you about.
Around 200 years from your own time, some workmen were busy over here. They knocked through a stone wall and found a skeleton. It was standing upright. Can you imagine a fear and horror? Could it be that they built the walls around this prisoner? Nobody knows. It remains a mystery till this very day.
Let's get my lord and lady out of here. They're starting to feel a little uneasy.
Our tour ends in the courtyard. We ask visitors 2 questions to remember the key points of our tour. And they also bow to our Lord and Lady.
Thank you for watching our virtual tour. You can book a real tour by going onto the Castleview website. If you are a parent or teacher, I hope you will book a tour to help your children understand more about Scotland's history. If you are a VIP, I hope you will encourage other schools to come to the castle. Curriculum for Excellence is all about learning in a context, and we have the best context to lead our learning, our wonderful castle.
Castleview has now taken over 1,000 pupils and staff on the Craigmillar Castle tour. We are proud to have links with historic Scotland and show that Craigmillar has a rich history and play our part in making its future. We have won the City of Edinburgh Achievement Award and were runners-up in the Scottish Education Awards. We hope to meet you again soon. Thank you for being so attentive to our virtual tour. Have a good day.
Members of my household, thank you all.
I always get the hard gig. I always have to follow the young people. For you, those of you who don't know me, my name's Joanna Murphy and I'm the chair of the National Parent Forum. I'd like to thank Bruce for your words of welcome and also thank very much the youngsters and the young entertainers from Castleview Primary School. I'm sure you'll all agree that they look fabulous and they've done a great job with their presentation. It was fascinating to see and hear so much about Craigmillar Castle. You're doing an amazing job. I've never been to Craigmillar Castle, but I will be booking on for one of the tours shortly. Now, you're not off the hook yet. Just before you go, I'm going to ask you a few questions to see what else you know about the castle. So, you can choose who's going to speak, but as long as one person doesn't see all the answers, I want to see that you all know what you're talking about. So, do you enjoy being tour guides?
Can I answer this, please?
You may.
Well, you can, of course, learn English. You can tell them about like VIPs, like history that they never heard before, and tell them like children that like never been to Craigmillar Castle. So it's very fun to present it as well.
And what do you think the benefits of being a tour guide are?
May I answer this one? It helps with your English, your self-confidence, and you learn a lot more about your environment and where you live about that you wouldn't normally learn.
And so how do you think that being a tour guide fits in with Curriculum for Excellence?
May I answer this question? Well, it's a two-year session. It starts off in P6 and we learn about Mary Queen of Scots and Scottish history, and then we go on and learn drama skills, and we get to teach children the history that they'd never learnt about. And all schools in Scotland can book a tour.
So what do you think your tour guides will do to help you when you're grown up in your later life?
May I answer this one? It'll help you with like your presentation. Like let's say you want to be a presentation or something, and then you want to like presenter. And you want to like if you're shy, you can't just go on stage and be like, you're gonna be like freezing. You're gonna be freezing up. And if you've done like tours and acting before, you can present yourself, and you don't have to be shy. You're used to the crowd, and you're used to people around you looking at you. So you're okay to present and not be like shy and freeze up.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And I'll now let you go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll give you a final round of applause as you're leaving. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll not hold up the proceedings for too long as we have a full day ahead planned for you. We're pleased to be celebrating parental engagement and involvement in our schools with you all today. 1 year on from the National Parent Forum of Scotland publishing the review of the Scottish Schools Parental Involvement Act 2006, I have been encouraged with the level of support for its recommendations. The idea that parents are partners in their child's education is not a new one, but it's been overlooked a little in recent years. It is great to hear that our efforts in strengthening and developing partnerships with schools is continuing to gather momentum. We all want what's best for our children, and schools that embrace their parents as true partners are well on the way to achieving this. I'm pleased to welcome all our speakers and workshop presenters here today. I'm particularly grateful to Mr. Swinney, who has since becoming Education Secretary been a key believer in the strength of parents' value. Also a big Scottish welcome to the aptly named Marinjevis Alba from the USA. I first heard Marinjevis speak at a Scottish Attainment Challenge event in Glasgow in June 2016. I found her words and insights inspirational, and I'm really excited for you all to hear from her today. I'm hugely grateful that she's come over from the States. I'd like to thank her not only for being here today, but also for the visits and meetings we have set up for her with Scottish Government and with some of our schools. Thank you too to Lindsay Watt, who agreed to sacrifice some of her hugely well-deserved retirement time to come along today. I'd like to thank our partner organisations who have taken stands in the marketplace. There are so many helpful groups with so much valuable information, you will find it well worth your time to visit them all, pick up a few goodies. Finally, thank you to the NPFS staff who have arranged this day today, and to all the reps who have made the journey to come along and speak to you all. I especially want to thank all of you. By coming here today and listening and sharing ideas and parental involvement in our schools, you're helping to make progress possible. It's only by working together that we can achieve what's best for our children. So, Mr. Swinney, you're on.
Well, thank you very much, Joanna, and it's a great pleasure to be with you this morning. And first of all, can I just say, through Lindsay Watt to the former head teacher of Castleview Primary School, just how much of a pleasure it was to see that fabulous illustration of how we can fulfil all of the elements of Curriculum for Excellence. I have to listen to an awful lot of commentary about Scottish education, and I listen to people saying to me sometimes they can't quite understand what Curriculum for Excellence is all about. And those young people explained what Curriculum for Excellence is all about. And I saw another fabulous example of it when I was coming down in the car today, and I point out I wasn't driving the car, I was sitting in the back of the car, but I looked at a film that Larbert High School had sent me, which is of essentially the school using their natural environment. The school's located right beside the Carron Dams, which was the epicentre of the Carron Ironworks, which is a hugely significant ironworks in the industrial history of Scotland. And they used their location to recreate a historical scene and event which involved drama, literacy, art, design, a huge volume of interdisciplinary learning with creativity and innovation ladled on top of that. Again, another illustration of the strength and the substance within Scottish education. So I've retweeted that film this morning, so if any of you happen to follow me on Twitter, you'll see it waiting for you, and it's well worth 11 minutes of your life to watch it, because it's a captivating piece of work about the strength of Curriculum for Excellence. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking to you today. I'd much rather be involved in the conversation, and also to hearing from Marian Eves and from Lindsay. But let me just say a couple of things to you about where we are in Scottish education. You may sense from my reflections on Castleview Primary School and Larbert High School that I'm hugely inspired by the strength and the quality that exists within Scottish education. I can find excellence wherever I go in different elements of Scottish education. The challenge for me, and this is my challenge and I'm working on a sustained basis to ensure it, is that we have that excellence available systemically in Scottish education. Because the vision I have for education in our country is that wherever a child is born and grows up and then goes into one of our schools or one of our early learning centres, they must be going into a centre where they can encounter excellence and where they can encounter, regardless of their background, and if Lindsay will forgive me, some of the children that have been in front of us will have come from some pretty challenging backgrounds in the area of the city that they live in. That wherever they come from, they are able to fulfil their potential as a consequence of their interaction with Scottish education. So I went to a school in the west of this city, a secondary school in the west side of this city, which would be viewed to be a pretty tough school that I went to from a challenging background. But I got an absolutely world-class education from that school, which set me up for all the rest of what I've done in my life. And that's the simple promise I want to achieve for every young person in our country, that they can walk into a school in Scotland and experience excellence and equity, that they can obtain a world-class education and their background is not an impediment to them fulfilling their potential. And that is the vision of our education system. What heartens me is that I see around the country our schools focusing on that challenge and on making sure that we put in place the necessary steps to make sure we can realise that vision. There are some essential elements that we have to make sure are there to make sure that we are successful in this journey. We have to have quality learning and teaching available for young people, so the quality and the strength of the educational experience must be of the highest level possible, which is why we've established the regional improvement collaboratives around the country so we can strengthen systemically around the country the learning and teaching that exists. We had a beautiful example of that this week when St Anthony's Primary School in Johnston in Renfrewshire was awarded the award for the UK Literary School of the Year, the UK Literacy School of the Year in Johnston, in a very challenging area of our country. And I listened to the head teacher on Good Morning Scotland, I think it was Wednesday morning, and she explained that her staff had realised the literacy offering in the school was not inspiring enough to the children, and they went off in partnership with Renfrewshire Council and the University of Strathclyde, and they went through a year-long process of changing their professional practice. And she volunteered all this on the radio this morning. She wasn't precious about the fact that what they were doing before wasn't perfect. She volunteered the fact it had to improve. They went off and improved it. And what has happened? Literacy approaches in that school have been transformed, and they are now the UK Literacy School of the Year. And it involved changing professional practice and strengthening learning and teaching. So learning and teaching is central to our school vision. The second thing is about leadership. The reason why the pupils from Castleview Primary School are able to stand in front of us from challenging backgrounds with tremendous confidence and tremendous self-regard and holding themselves with great poise is because they've been in a school that's been well led. It's been led to success, to say there's no barrier whatsoever to the achievement of our young people, and we're going to make sure this happens for them all. And Lindsay Watt has delivered that leadership over many years, but crucially, I'm now going into schools in Edinburgh which are being led by teachers that were nurtured under Lindsay Watt, who are now delivering the same focused, clear, head-up leadership in the schools of our country. So in every one of our 2,500 schools in the country, we need to have good, strong leadership with head teachers who can exercise the leadership necessary to transform the life chances of young people. So leadership is crucial. Thirdly, we need to have parents absolutely at the epicentre of what is going on. Out in Sighthill Primary School in the west side of the city, near where I was born and brought up, the school realised that they had, frankly, an unsatisfactory relationship with the parents. The parents were disengaged in the children's education. So they've used pupil equity funding, the money the government puts directly into the hands of our empowered head teachers, to find ways of improving that parental engagement. And they've transformed part of the school, which is a welcoming environment, which brings parents into the school. It's not like coming to a parents' night, it's like coming to somewhere that you might go for a cup of coffee or for some other sort of conversation. And parents have been brought into the learning experience of the children, and unsurprisingly, in the process, the staff are finding about learning challenges that the parents have, which they are now trying to solve and address, and that it's been done in a partnership. And what's happening in the school has been strengthened by the active engagement of parents, supporting, yes, the learning of the children, but also finding more fulfillment for their lives as a consequence of their interaction with their children's schools. So the doors of the school thrown wide open to parents to say, come on in, we need more of you, we need you closer to us, we need you involved in the process of learning. So these three elements of the quality of learning and teaching, the quality of leadership, and the quality of parental interaction, if we get this right, I think we've got the formula for making sure that we can actually make. Normally I stand in front of a banner which says the Scottish Attainment Challenge, making Scotland the best country in the world to learn. The best country in the world to learn. And that's what I'm about. It's about making sure that our children have the opportunity to have their lives transformed by their interaction with education, and it sets them up for everything in their life. But we need quality learning and teaching, we need quality leadership, and we need parental involvement. Now, we're going through a process of reform in Scottish education. Some of it's bumpy, some of it's difficult, some of it attracts a lot of criticism. I can see that I get a lot of criticism about what I'm doing, but that's why I'm doing it, because that's the education system I want to make sure is available to all the children of our country. And my last point is this. I have realised, I hadn't thought about this until I became the Education Secretary, but it has something that is now very much part of my whole vision and what gets me out of my bed in the morning. If I look at Scottish education since I was in it, all those decades ago, 35 years ago, what I can see is that our system has, to a large extent, accepted that some people were not going to be able to fulfill their potential. That's not good enough, and it's not on any longer. So the direction I've got from my First Minister is, you have got to go out there and close the poverty-related attainment. That's me, by the way. I'm pointing at. I have got to get out there and close the poverty-related attainment gap so that background and deprivation are not the impediment to young people fulfilling their potential. And everything I do, every single thing I do, will be focused on that objective. So if I come back to the NPFS conference next year, I promise you I will deliver the same speech to you again, because I am not going to budge from this direction of travel for the 5 years I have the privilege of being the Education Secretary, because this is our opportunity as a country to interrupt something which has not been acceptable throughout all my adult life, but it's been there, and we're determined to focus on closing it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swinney. You saw my boys and girls this morning. The very first day I went to Castleview Primary School, I walked up to the AstroTurf and I said to the boys and girls that were gathered there, "What's that there?" And they said, "That's Craigmillar Castle." And I said, "Oh, what do you know about it?" They said, "We've never been." And our badge actually had a picture of it on it. And so from that day forward, I thought, that is what I want to do, is to make sure our children know about their own environment. So we were at when I was appointed in 2005, Curriculum for Excellence was just starting. So we were at the dawn of that. Nobody gave me permission to go and devise a curriculum round Craigmillar Castle. I just did it. And I think that that's part of an issue with our younger head teachers, is that they feel overwhelmed by creating a curriculum in a context for their school. And there's no need to feel like that. I also felt exactly what Mr. Swinney said about Sighthill Primary School. We were not engaging with our parents. Our school had merged with 3 other schools. And so there were, you know, we're the children who come from Greendykes. We're the children that come from Craigmillar Primary School. No, we're all Castleview now. We're all as one. And so we started off with the PEEP programme in the nursery, because that's the way to go. You start in the early years and you work your way forward. So we started with PEEP, and then we delivered the FAST programme, the Families and Schools Together. And now we're working on Families Connect, which is the new programme. We might have some representatives of that here today. And we were early adopters of that. And that's about getting parents and teachers together with agencies who work in our learning community to look at literacy, numeracy, and emotional development. And as we know, the overarching themes of Curriculum for Excellence are literacy, numeracy, and health and well-being. And the key thing I feel that we should be developing in our children is resilience. And it's something that can be taught, because my parents taught me how to be resilient. And for some of our children, they face very, very tough realities. Over 95% of our children are in the social index of multiple deprivation 1 and 2. So what? That should not be holding them back. And those children on the stage here today could tell you stories about their family life that would be very upsetting for you to hear. And yet this morning they came and delivered, and they could have come from any school in Scotland. And that's what it's about. It's about saying that those barriers mean nothing. In fact, they're not even barriers. It's something that the situation that they're in, but it will not hold them back from success. Now, the Scottish Attainment Challenge came in, and because of our position in the social index of multiple deprivation, the Scottish Attainment Challenge funding really made us focus again, what are we going to do with this money? Because it was a lot of money. And we thought, right, what are we going to do with this? And what did we say? Parental engagement. That's what we need. And so we looked at what we were already doing, but also developing all teach, all learn sessions where parents came along, like the Sighthill project. This isn't rocket science, folks. This is what's been going on in schools across Scotland. And so we looked at that and we decided what we needed to do to support parents in what we were doing, because parents used to say, oh, I remember a dad saying to me, oh, the last time I was in the Headies room, I was in trouble. And I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted people to come into our school and feel they understood about learning and be really motivated. And so we had all teach, all learn sessions. These are very, very popular sessions, and we've got attendance now at 70%, which is phenomenal for us. Never organise an all teach, all learn session when there's a Celtic game on. That's something I didn't have 70% that night. And also we looked at the Castleview Reading Collective. That was a name that we made up. We got people together, and obviously a lot of our parents, they arrive in Craigmillar, English isn't their first language. We had to go through all the ways in which we actually teach reading, and we used it to buy really high quality book bags that our parents actually helped to run that project, so that every week our children in the early years are getting a book that they really enjoy reading, with all different examples of numeracy and literacy and projects based around that. And they've also been given a reading buddy who's a pupil in the school as well. So it's all tying up together, and it's a really, really wonderful project. We also looked at robust tracking. Now, that gets a really bad press, but I think you need to know where a child is and what they're doing. And so if you went, if you'd asked a question, so Dylan, who was Sir Simon, bit of a character in the school, Dylan, do you know what your reading targets are? He would be able to tell you that, and he would be able to tell you when he'd met them and what his next targets were. His parents would also know what his targets were. His teacher would know. I know because don't know them all off pat, but I know where they are, and I'm actually seeing continuous improvement. We weren't doing that before the Scottish Attainment Challenge. I'm sorry, we just weren't. I hold my hands up to that. So the Scottish Attainment Challenge made us really robustly focus on individual children and their ongoing projects. And it opened up conversations with parents and with their children beside them to actually see where we were going. Now, I've been a teacher, I just retired in the February break there, for 39 years. I've been a head teacher for 25 years, and I've been a parent for 30 years. And the hardest thing was being a parent, I have to say, because there is no script university for being a parent. It's a really hard gig. But I think that children are obviously Scotland's most precious commodity. And if we're not providing nurturing schools where high quality teaching and learning can take place, then we're failing those children. So for me, it was always about creating a school, when I was a teacher, creating a classroom that I would want my children to be taught in. That's the gold standard. Would I send my children to Castleview Primary School? Yes, I would, because the teaching and learning there is fantastic. It's been graded as excellent by HMIE. Fantastic. So that is something that I think that we should be saying to all our head teachers, that is the gold standard. I call my school family, and I will always be part of that family. I'm now the retired granny of that school family. In September, Mr. Swinney and the First Minister gave me the great honour of being presented with the Robert Owen Award. I was the first working teacher in Scotland to be given that award, and it was a huge honour. And Mrs. Swinney, you'll remember in my speech, I spoke about how I would use it to publicise the role of a head teacher, and it had to be the best job in the world. In my opinion, I think it is. And I also then was asked, and I said during the speech, that you had to come to your work whistling. The amount of conversation that has been generated over that comment, how do you do that? And I think that it's about the high quality teaching and learning, it's about the leadership. There was my principal teacher. It's Saturday morning, she's worked a full week, she's here with those kids because she knows that she's part of that team. And as Mr. Swinney's right, you do see people who say, I'm a Castleview girl and I'm a Castleview boy. And that's fantastic because it's a mini leadership academy. I saw that as my job as well. I think that we should all be supportive members of our school families. And I think that parents should see themselves as part of that school family as well. And they should also be supporting with bringing the joy back into teaching and learning. There is a huge amount of negativity around education, but there's also a lot of joy there as well. And we have to, as a nation, understand that if our children are going to do well, schools need to be happy places. So let's get that sorted. And let's look at what we can do for these young people so that they come to school whistling. I've also been given the opportunity, and I have to say, since retiring, I've been busier than ever. I'm going to be working with Queen Margaret University on initial teacher education. And one of the things that I will be supporting new teachers with is that whole aspect of being resilient. Yes, there will be times. Even the Deputy First Minister gets slated, and it must make him feel a wee bit down about things. But look at all the great things that are going on as well. Why are we focused on that negativity? If there is something that's negative in your school and you're not happy with, go and have a conversation to try to make it better. If also you see something that's good, let's talk about that as well. And I think that's something that we need to do a little bit more of, is talking positively about what we can do to make Scotland's schools productive and joyful. Now, when I was leaving, I was overwhelmed by the messages and handwritten notes from children, and I got lovely cards as well, but the handwritten notes from the children were the things that gave me the most joy. And one child, I think he wanted to say to me, "Thanks, Miss Watt, I wish you a long and healthy, happy retirement." But what he wrote was, "Thanks, Miss Watt, I hope you don't die too soon." Now, fingers crossed. But I know that in Craigmillar, you know, I'm 60, you know, what an old wifey she is. But the sentiments were there. But this letter here was written by Helen, and this demonstrates resilience, and it also demonstrates aspiration. And at my leaving celebration, children came back who I'd worked with. I'd keep in touch with many of my children who are now young people and left school. And one of the girls came back and she told me that, and she told the whole audience, that she has been accepted, Castleview pupil, for every single university in Scotland, unconditional, to study law. Now, she's one child, but there are other positive stories as well. That's the most recent one. Why wouldn't every child in my school be aspirational for that as well? And I also remember when in conversations in the last few weeks of being there, a child had been watching the space programme and what was happening, and he said, "When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut, Miss Watt, because people like me can be astronauts." Yeah, they can. And that's what it is about, is actually planting those seeds of aspiration in their head. So on to Helen's letter. To Miss Watt, the way you made me feel is unreal. You've been my star throughout school. When you left, it was tough, and I can't imagine how sad everyone is going to be when you go. Resilience. We will have to get through it. Every day in life and in school, it can be tough, but whenever someone is sad, you would bring them laughter. That's why you're so special. Again, resilience. To go on to more positive stuff, let's not dwell on you going and being sad. I know, this is the aspiration bit, I know this isn't the last we are going to hear of you. So she's given me a target, you know? On you go and be whatever you can be, even though you're very old. Miss Watt, I would just like to thank you for being the best head teacher in the world. Thank you. From Helen, and a picture of a rainbow, because the school song was Reach for the Stars. Reach for the stars. Ladies and gentlemen, we have it in our power to reach for the stars. Let's do that.
Very tough acts to follow this morning, I'll say. And unlike the children of Castleview, I did not memorize my lines. So I'm going to be reading from my document. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I'm very honored to be here with you among such notable guests, and I'm particularly pleased to be here because I consider my coming, this little trip across the ocean, to sort of be another act of solidarity with the people of Scotland. I think that you're very fortunate to be part of a national conversation on excellence and equity. And unfortunately, in my country, we are not there yet. But I belong to a community and a small pocket, I think, of change that's happening across the country through community schools. And so I'm sort of here as a practitioner to share some of our success and some of our learnings, and also, you know, throughout the day to hear from all of you. This is my third time in Scotland, and I feel like I've been part of an ongoing dialogue, a very rich dialogue on possibility, right? And what's possible when we actually invest in possibility as communities. So I'd like to begin there. I'd like us to begin with this notion that we in this room, you know, this essentially is a choir that I'm preaching to, right? We in this room are partners in possibility. And so the question is, how do we bring parents in to join us on this journey as partners in possibility? So I'm going to begin at our schools. At their very best, schools are vibrant, pulsing hearts in any community. And student success is largely rooted in the ability of leaders to build synergy around this goal. The most effective school leaders are often individuals who are able to harness the social capital of school community to drive student performance while nurturing their social-emotional growth and strengthening the school community overall. Anyone who works inside of a school building has the potential to do this. And everyone working inside of a school building ultimately has the responsibility of attempting it. We know in this room that anyone who touches the life of a child has the potential to transform that child, for better or for worse. For this reason, a child's first or most present life guides, their parents or their caregivers, are our most powerful allies in education. Committing time, space, and other resources to building relationships with parents and supporting parents themselves helps to build a stronger foundation upon which families can support their children. We know that parental involvement supports attainment and long-term success of students as they journey from schooling into the world of higher education and the worlds of career or work. Parental involvement can exist on a continuum where parents can exist as everything from passive recipients of information to active participants in education. But a myriad of factors deeply influence where parents place themselves on that continuum at any given time. Schools, the place where children spend most of their waking hours, are often void of parent or caregiver presence despite the goodwill of school leaders. What then can we in this room do to shift this paradigm? I would argue that parental involvement is more greatly influenced by relationships and the nature of parents' connections to schools than any other overarching material factor. Parents need both space and place within their children's school communities. Scholars of parental involvement like Joyce Epstein of Johns Hopkins University in the United States have cited parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and collaborating with community as hallmarks of parental involvement. These strategies are certainly the underpinnings of strong home-school connections which bridge classroom learning with family life. But there is a critical piece of this work that underlies the active involvement of parents and caregivers in schools. In fact, our very first step in this work is transforming our mindset around it. Schools must be places where parents are invited in to celebrate student achievement and progress as often as they are invited in to address student needs or concerns. We must welcome parents in and allow them the space to observe, learn, and build community alongside their children and teachers. We must build trust and allow parents to work alongside teachers and school staff to uphold and transmit school values, mission, and vision, and expand their role from guardians of children to guardians of our school communities. Over the years, parents with whom I've worked have taken on a wide range of roles within our school community. Building trust and even camaraderie over time, parents of all walks of life have worked tirelessly as volunteers on school-based projects, offered their thinking, talents, and labor to school-wide or other special events and programs, and supported formal advocacy on everything from after-school programming to school-based health centers to immigrant rights and community anti-violence initiatives. The very same people whose children we serve reciprocate and serve the school community, demonstrating their commitment and investment in the community and the community's future. I know from this work that parents should be invited to the table as partners, decision makers, and advisors whenever possible. Often parent engagement is treated with a unidirectional approach that emphasizes parent and family deficits rather than assets. Approaching parents as partners who hold the richest well of information and insight into the lives and development of their children shifts this narrative. It demonstrates that parents' voices are valued and helps parents access and perceive their own power, agency, and importance in guiding the lives of their children. Parents are not only more likely to collaborate more closely on the needs of their children, but also more inclined to offer support unsolicited and invest their own time and resources in strengthening the school community. Developing relational equity then with parents and families builds assets for the entire school community over time. The possibility of seeing parents as something other than their limitations then is the key to our work. The immigrant parent or blue-collar worker who's relegated to rigorous labor is often a community chef, a local cultural worker, a storyteller, or a craftsperson. The once-teen mother is an expert in resilience. The grandparent with physical limitations is often a child's most ardent and loving advocate. Embracing all of these homegrown leaders must be an essential part of our work, as these are not only our stakeholders, but also role models to other guardians and families who have not yet identified their strengths and social assets. We know from our work with parents that the social networks which they build within the walls of our schools are the very ones that they carry out into the world. They use these to navigate challenges beyond school and their school-age parenting experience. Parent engagement is essential to thriving schools and thriving communities. While many of our students who struggle academically often struggle in their daily lives due to socioeconomic and other factors, struggle and lack are only part of their story. Rather than just thinking about despair or deficiencies in the communities we serve, our work demands that we identify the abundant well of resources and possibilities that live in our children and youth, families, and their communities. Once we have identified them, we must work and urge our communities, our professional communities, to create space that allows all of these things to grow and to flourish, and to impart the notion that growth and transformation are arduous processes, and that these arduous processes tempered with hard work, patience, discipline, hope, and the support of dedicated guides and advocates can yield sweet fruit. But who are the guides and advocates given this charge? And how do we ensure that they do the work? Well, we are the guides, or at least some of the guides who inform one part of this very complex equation. The other guides, perhaps the most influential ones, are parents and caregivers. Consciously or unconsciously, intentionally or unintentionally, parents are our first teachers. They are our students' first teachers. Whether they instruct us through word or deed, they give us our very first blueprint for life. They teach us how to love and be loved, listen, act, behave, and dream. Their aspirations become our foundations. And this is a very complex reality. Their challenges, pain, and burdens also become ours as well. This is so for our students. Imagine then a parent who has completed only a secondary or even primary school education, or a parent forced to work at a young age, or driven by life really to prioritize financial responsibility over intellectual or professional pursuits. Envision the parent struggling to fill out a school form because he or she cannot read or write well, or the parent who never speaks or speaks self-consciously, perhaps even with shame because of an accent or a limited vocabulary, and the parent struggling to maintain a household or manage the care of their children with limited supports. I have met each of these parents in my 20+ years as an educator, youth advocate, and ally. And unfortunately, very fortunately, I have come to know many of them personally through in-school collaboration, homeschool partnerships, and even as my very own students. I have learned that in addition to their limitations, they are tremendously capable, talented, and driven to give their children the very best of themselves. And this is where it is important to note the complexity and diverse landscape that is our human experience. One parent's best, one person's best, does not necessarily look like another's. Giving our best implies simply that we are giving the greatest part of ourselves. Sometimes it means that we are giving all but our breath. In fact, for many of our parents, it means exactly that. They are giving all that they have to give or all that they know how to. This is very important. As we embark on this discussion around family engagement, context matters. So many of the conversations in schools around family engagement are designed to address the question of why parents are not doing enough or do nothing at all. In this room, I believe that we know that this is the wrong question. The first step, perhaps the most critical in this work, is effectively engaging parents and caregivers and acknowledging this context so that we can shift our perspective. If we enter into a relationship with parents looking at what they lack, we will miss the opportunity to leverage all of the gifts that they bring. On my school campus, the very same parents who sometimes struggle with the newest approaches to mathematics or work 2 jobs and lack the time to review homework each evening have become the people who cook for our annual harvest dinner and volunteer at school-wide events. Some have become mentors to other parents as they transform their own lives and challenges into strong social networks within and outside of the school's walls. The parents that many fear don't care or cannot contribute have become my greatest allies in not only supporting their children's academic life, but also partners in creating a warm, welcoming school community that is learning every day what it means to be a partner in possibility. While the demographic criteria that define my school to the world are glum, I work in New York City, 1.1 million pupils, 1,800 schools, 77% of those pupils live in poverty. In my school campus, 96% of my pupils live in poverty. So those statistics are pretty glum, right? I know, my team knows, and I'm sure many of you, like Lindsay, know that there is life within the walls of our schools. There is color within the walls of our schools. We are restoring respect, humanity, and dignity to our children and families. We do this one relationship at a time by leveraging the skills and capacities of our entire school community and recognizing how our differences are actually complementary. Teachers and school leaders are experts of pedagogy and child development, but parents are experts of their children. We must bring them to the table as such. As a parent, I know without a doubt that no one knows my 7-year-old son better than I. I know his temperament, his habits, his likes, his dislikes, better than any other person on earth. I also know that when he goes to school each day, he transforms radically because of the conditions of school and all of the people that he interacts with, his teachers, his peers, and all of the people that support his school life. How then can a student, any student, be fully seen without an active and dynamic partnership between teachers, school leaders, and parents? How can student needs be fully met without this sort of synergy, right, of interest, of investment, of support? As a parent, I come to the conversation knowing that no amount of classroom instruction can guarantee my son's success unless I have set the conditions, expectations, and resources for him to flourish as a learner. His teachers cannot respond to every curiosity or ensure that he sleeps sufficiently at night. They can't ensure that his stomach is filled such that it will not grumble during class time, or that he has adequate space and light to read at home when he's not in school. They cannot always remind him that education is the first tool gifted to him so that he may design and build his life. I see this responsibility clearly. As a partner and ally to parents in my school community, one of my roles is to ensure that they do as well. When we encounter parents who we suspect are struggling with their parental obligations or whom we perceive as not taking interest in their children's academic lives, do we judge them or do we invite them to a place at the table? When children are struggling, do we blame their parents or do we hold the doors to our schools open and invite them in to discuss not their failures, but solutions and insights into what is possible? Have we built school communities that celebrate the resilience, creativity, and kinship that live in our communities? Success is not guaranteed for our most vulnerable children and families. Many of our most marginalized families are more consumed with survival than success. This is why some parents' very best sometimes feels like not enough. As parent leaders, educators, advocates, policymakers, and allies, it is imperative that we build bridges of support and connection between school and family life and strengthen pathways to success that uplift rather than condemn families. These will provide added layers of support and even protection to families and a deeper understanding of families' worldview as they establish goals for their children and navigate what sometimes feels like a nebulous road to success. As people who have committed ourselves to educating children, we must commit to shifting this paradigm so that children and families can move fluidly from survival to success. We must enter into this work with the end goal of cultivating harmony rather than harm in the lives of children and families. Fundamentally, this is education equity at its root, leveraging the best of what we have to offer to students to ensure that all students have a fair chance at attaining the standards that have been set for them, and ensuring that those with the least get the most. We must approach parent engagement with the same mindset. Like their children, parents with the least should get the most information, the most resources, and the greatest opportunity to contribute, however modestly, to the educational lives of their children. We must enter into our contracts with children not only with their needs in mind, but the needs, concerns, and worldview of their parents. This too is a competence for educators, extending our empathy and our commitment to children, to their families, so that their parents and caregivers can more effectively support our work and the dreams of their children. One of the first lessons of parenting, and Lindsay pointed it out, is that there are no manuals and that the rules change or shift according to conditions and circumstance. Some of our roles are defined by our shared needs as fellow human beings. We provide nourishment, shelter, and safety. Most parents know to do at least that part. Guiding children through academic life, however, is far more complex for educators and for parents. Managing this great charge is not clear-cut for anyone. There is no curriculum, formula, or assessment that can drive accessing our deep-rooted humanity when we engage children and their families. Whether or not we're conscious of it, educating children demands careful attention to the needs and development of the whole child and the whole person, and often the whole family. Every human being who walks through the doors of any given school is a universe, perhaps a delicate ecosystem of thoughts, beliefs, emotions, conditions, circumstances, and physical needs, all conjoined to form a dynamic living being. This is a magical thing and an experience that we all share. Students, teachers, parents, community members. This universal experience is what binds us despite our differences and despite the challenges of educating children in a rapidly changing world seemingly built on social inequality. We must look to the shared reality, this shared identity as dynamic, perhaps magical beings to inform our work and our future together. What we have are the language and the magic of our hearts, and our willingness to enter into relationship as our full selves in search of possibilities for good. Communication, connection, collaboration, and community are the beginning and the end of our work. These are what we seek and what we constantly need to meet our most pressing challenges and achieve our most important goals in education and also in life. What some of us call the business of educating children is in fact not a business. It is a vocation, it is a mission, and it is an expression of our highest hopes for the future and our possibilities. Educating our children is our investment in ensuring a sustainable future for our entire human family. It is magic. So when you leave here today, then imagine that you are the magicians and ask yourself, what magic will I make? Thank you. you.
One word I would use to try and sum up all three presentations is passion. You know, we had the Deputy First Minister come along here today and very simply outline A, his vision, and B, his journey to achieve his aim, and clearly the job he's got from his boss, namely ensure that we allow every child in Scotland, no matter their background, to achieve their best. And I thought it was a very simple but powerful and passionate outline of what this was all about, and closing the poverty-related attainment gap. And a very simple distillation of a highly complex educational reform programme, by the way, because these things are complex. I thought Lindsay just took that and actually told it as it was, as quite clearly a passionate and highly successful head teacher. How you actually deliver curriculum for excellence in all its complexities and so on, and get a really good inspection along the way. And clearly making your school a happy place, and not allowing, as Mr. Swinney was talking about, not allowing the background of any child to get in the way of achieving her success. And then we had the New York vision in terms of community schools. And by the way, I always thought the new community school initiative, which we did grapple with in Scotland a couple of decades ago, had and still has a huge amount of capacity in it. So I just thought you gave us some really fresh thinking there, and outlined for the parents in the audience the kind of roles that they deserve in terms of a real school community. And that quote, I'll really like that. Those with the least should get the most. And we are seeing that play out in Scotland in terms of some policy and financial allocations as well. One of the words that came through as well, all three presentations, was the importance of leadership. The importance of school leadership across the board, not just the Heedy. As Lindsay was explaining, one of the legacies she clearly left behind was a school which actually was taking the broader leadership programme, so it wasn't all about Lindsay. Because I've seen schools collapse when a successful head teacher has left and there's no legacy, there's no infrastructure to take them forward. So leadership came through all three presentations, I thought. All very, very different, and thank you for that. So I'm going to throw this open now in terms of the conversation. I don't want the kind of traditional question and answer thing. That doesn't mean to say you don't ask a question and you won't get an answer, but it'll be quite interesting to get different perspectives from our key speakers and also from Joanne there. So would anybody like to kick this off? We've got until about 11:45 for this. Anybody like to kick this off? Could you say who you are and where you're from and who you're representing, by the way?
I'm just here representing my children. I'm a parent.
That's great.
Come through the Glasgow area. But it's just a few observations in relation to what's been discussed and some concerns as well, actually, about what's been discussed. I very much agree with John, what you says there in relation to the circumstances of a child outside the school gate shouldn't have any effect whatsoever once they enter that school gate. That should be totally supported and accounted for. It's nobody's business, and everybody should have an equal opportunity as soon as they enter a school. And poverty has been used for an excuse for too long for failing pupils at school for that very reason. Some of them might be young carers outside the school, can't have their parents help them, can't get work done. So really the reality is, once they enter the school, if they fail, it's the school's fault. It's not the parents' fault, it's not society's fault, it's the school's fault. And then you've got to analyse why that's been allowed to happen. You've also spoke, John, about the pupil equity fund. I'm very concerned about that, because what you says to me there is it's getting spent on renovations in schools for parents. So I don't quite understand that. Why isn't that a digital fund, a digital bank account for each kid in that school, so that school or that pupil in that school can then decide what help or support they need or what opportunities to get equality, whether that's music, sport or anything else that they can take on board, because you've had a parent forum now in an act since 2006. So suddenly get a pupil equity fund then to start funding something that's been established in 2006. I find that just a diversion of funds away from what I understood it to be, and that's for equality, for the opportunity for pupils. I've even heard it's been spent on some policemen.
Why don't we actually take that? Because that in itself is quite a big issue. Maybe Mr. Swinney can explain, number one, what the rationale of the Pupil Equity Fund was, and Lindsay perhaps give a few examples of why that, if you like, independence to actually target resources was good. So, DFM for a start. And then we'll
Pupil Equity Funding was introduced to add to the investment that we put into the Scottish Attainment Challenge, which, as Lindsay explained, started the whole route of the government targeting money directly to individual schools where there was the prevalence of poverty, and to provide, and it really is to take Marion Ev's point that those who have the least should get the most. It's about actually targeting additional resources to young people that are wrestling with the effects of poverty and the potential effect of that on their education. Now, what we have said is that pupil equity funding has got to be used to provide additionality. It can't be there to replace things that have been funded before and may have been removed. But the example I cited about Sighthill Primary School was the primary school acknowledging that one of the difficulties they had in providing an effective education to young people was the weakness of parental engagement and parental involvement. So they were having to overcome that issue. They had to tackle it. So that, to me, is an entirely legitimate use of pupil equity funding to make sure that new capacity can be created within education to support the achievement of young people. Now, across the country, we're doing a thing just now where on social media we are promoting examples of pupil equity funding, and every day one gets put out, and I weigh in behind it on social media to get it circulated to a wider audience. And it's very interesting seeing the range of different topics that are used, the different projects that are taken forward. Some of them are about parental involvement, some of them are about enhancing literacy, some of them are about enhancing numeracy, some of them are about supporting health and well-being, some of them are about connecting young people to their natural environment, which in some inner city communities, like it's quite, you know, I happen to live in rural Perthshire. I see the hills every morning when I get out of my bed. It's joyful. But some people don't ever see that. And some of the pupil equity funding has been used to broaden the horizons of young people and families with astonishing results, simply by connecting young people to the natural environment, which is theirs. They live in this beautiful country, but sometimes they don't live close enough to experience it, and their parents don't have the means or the opportunity to take them to share and understand it. The crucial thing about pupil equity funding is that I want it to be there as a symbol. Not a symbol, symbol's the wrong word, as a manifestation of empowerment within schools. I want the schools to be able to decide what it's going to be used for, how it's going to be used. I don't want it to be dictated by local authorities. It's up to the schools to decide that, and any good school will engage with the pupils and the parents about how that resource is going to be used, because it's such a valuable resource to help to transform the educational outcomes of young people. And lastly, some pupil equity funding will not work. Some of it will not be successful. Some of it will not be effective. And I don't want us to be fearful of that. I want us to learn the lessons from that. So that we just say, well, okay, we don't think that was that effective, so why wasn't it effective? And what are we going to do next year that's going to be more effective? And I want teachers to have the confidence to know that their Deputy First Minister and Education Secretary is prepared to accept the fact that some things won't work. And the most important thing is we should learn lessons from that.
Lindsay, from the point of view of the school handling all of this and trying to get the best out of it?
Well, first of all, we had the Scottish Attainment Challenge, and because of my demographic, we got funding for that. So we were kind of well on the way.
And it is really true that it's where you are as a school, what you did with your pupil equity funding. But we did discuss it with our parent council, we did discuss it with our staff team, and we did discuss it with our children. Things like instrument tuition and so on, that was happening in our school. Performance is a very big deal at Castleview, and so that wasn't something that we particularly needed to focus on. But we did feel that our outdoor learning was perhaps weaker than it should have been, and so we used that to devise programmes of study for outdoor learning, making sure that the health and wellbeing agenda was at the top of what we were doing, and so we were able to get in additional staff, whether they were teachers or whether they were from external agencies, to help us support that. But our key thing was that we had to plan for sustainability. So if at some point this pupil equity funding is withdrawn, we have set up a programme for all of our children that our parents are working on that we can actually deliver even if the funding was to be taken away. So we've got to be thinking about the long term for that. But the crucial thing for us was always about the raising of attainment. That's where our focus has been. We were thinking about it before, but not as, I use the word robust because now we're on it. We're absolutely on it all the time, and that gave us the opportunity to be better at that and to involve parents coming in and being that partnership working, to really quality partnership working, that it was a real team effort.
Thanks. Joanne, and then we'll maybe move on to another question. Joanne. That's never held you back before, Joanne. A mic up here, please.
I deliberately, when organising this conference, thank you, I deliberately asked Mr. Swinney to come and put the message out that schools could be bold with their money. They could. You can't write all the things you could do with your money in a big list, but it was to say you don't need some of the examples. You can use it for other things as long as it demonstrates how attainment can be raised, and that's very clear for us that's one of the messages we really wanted to see out in the education community.
Thanks. I saw yes.
Hi, excuse me. I'm Tina Woolnow of Connect, formerly Scottish Parent Teacher Council. Yeah. It's continuing the same theme, but there is lots of good reason why parents should be involved in decisions about the PEF funding. Could I just ask the panel about if they've come across examples where parents have been involved in deciding this funding? Because with the whole school community approach, they need to be at the table, and then perhaps there wouldn't be questions about these sorts of decisions.
I see countless examples of it around the country. I would judge it to be good practice that, I think as Lindsay said there, it's about a whole school community approach. It's about parents, it's about pupils, it's about staff. It's not just about head teachers sitting in their office with the door closed thinking, how am I going to spend this money myself? It's about engaging that wider school community to work out what's going to make the most effect. And it's interesting, looking at some of the programmes that have emerged, the involvement of pupils and how pupils have formed some of that thinking has been particularly enriching as part of the process. So a whole school community approach sits absolutely comfortably with the aspirations of the National Improvement Framework and all of our guidance on distributing these resources.
I think there's an increasing body of experience developing right around this as well. I mean, I know that the First Minister a few weeks ago visited a school over in the west of Scotland where there was a very, very innovative approach led by the head teacher, but with the parents in a very, very deprived part of Scotland. And the experiences there with some parents who are drug users, who are very difficult circumstances, has made a huge difference to that community, and they're using it to move forward. It's quite incredible, some of the things that have happened, and it's also reassuring, actually, very honest, for a senior politician to actually say, yes, some things won't work, because that's life. But the other thing I know that Education Scotland are doing is that they're looking at the good practice and sharing that round head teachers and round school forums as well. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Lisa Armstrong from Respect Me, and the question I have is with a kind of parent hat on. They're just kind of interested to find out maybe about inspiring examples across Scotland where secondary schools are opening up their doors to parents, particularly at an age where maybe if we've got teenagers, it's not cool for our parents to be in school. So I just wondered what was out there.
That's a huge challenge, isn't it? You know, those of you who are parents in secondary schools and you've got teenagers at home, or maybe, you know, not exactly the best at communicating with you. You're digging into the school bag or whatever it is. So any suggestions there? Yes, Lindsay.
Our feeder high school is Castleview Community High School, and it's had a troubled past. But I was invited to be a seconded head teacher for a year at Castleview High School. I'm responsible for broad general education, which is the transition period from primary 7. And that was a huge success because we began this programme of transition, which has been graded as excellent by HMI as well, because we wanted to ensure that children from all, not just Castleview, but from all of the primary schools were getting a quality transition arrangement. So the high school teachers worked more closely with the primary school teachers, and also you had a primary school head teacher who was overseeing the broad general education. And again, that was something that was done for a year, and then a depute took over that, and then I returned to my Castleview family. So I think that's a really good example, and there are other high schools that are doing similar things with family workers and so on that are moving. And there's also plans for a primary teacher to move up to the high school with their class and do that on a rotational basis across the cluster, which will be a fantastic thing. And in terms of the trickiness that was happening at Castleview, I remember getting a duty call, and went into a science class where the behaviour was not very good. And there were these kids really just not behaving the way you would want them to be. And I walked in and said, "Excuse me?" And everybody went, "Oh," I won't say the word they used, but they said, "Oh, it's Miss Watt." Now, the science teacher said to me, "Lindsay, how do you get those," it was in his first year of teaching, "how do you get those children to do that?" It's about relationships, because I knew most of those children since they were in nursery, aged 3 years old. And that is part of the success. It's about those relationships. And I think secondary schools are opening up their minds to that more, and they're seeing the good work in primary, and they're having that transition programme that will help them to deliver curriculum for excellence in the secondary schools.
I think one of the other examples I would cite is about the application of the Developing Scotland's Young Workforce Agenda, which this is a really good approach suggested to us by Sir Ian Wood in the review in 2014. What it's designed to do is to get the school system more closely associated with the world of work. And I've used it as an excuse to essentially get secondary schools, although there's a lot of good primary school practice. I was down at Dunbar Primary School the week before last, taking part in their World of Work programme, where I was in to address the primary 7s about, well, what's it like to be the education secretary. It was, it was quite a good therapy session actually, but what the Developing Scotland's Young Workforce Programme does is it opens up schools to the engagement of other adults, mostly the parents of pupils in the school, to go into the school and to explain, well, what does the world of work look like in a variety of different fields? And that can be anything from plumbers and joiners to university professors, but this is all the world of work, and everyone's got to see what are the possibilities in the world of work. And I think it's one very useful element of how we can practically get parents involved in the school in other ways other than there is an issue with the conduct or performance of your child, which I think, and this is the difference between the primary and the secondary sector, I think there's been an awful lot, there's probably more contact in the primary sector about things other than the performance of your child than there is in the secondary sector. And I think the Developing Scotland's Young Workforce agenda is about trying to breathe a bit of fresh air into that. But there will be other examples too.
There's a lady just across here, her hands up, yes, with a grey jumper.
Hi there. I'm Margaret and I represent Falkirk on the National Parent Forum of Scotland. My question actually probably is to John Swinney in particular. Given that in my role as the Falkirk rep, I have also set up, along with Diane, who's in the audience as well, we set up a Falkirk Area Parent Forum network. But it's also just to find out, there was a role for parental involvement officers in the local authorities, but if they move on, they're not getting replaced. So it was just to find out, is that something, because parents are so important, could that possibly be something that we could do?
Well, I think I would much rather see that activity being undertaken by schools, because I'm not sure what value is added by that role being exercised within the local authority, because where it matters is in the school. How open is the school for parental involvement? School by school, because it's no use being master planned in the council headquarters. It's whether you as a parent feel it in relation to your child's school. And that's what the type of education system I'm trying to create is a school-led, school-empowered education system, where the things that matter, because it's your child's education, that's what's got to be excellent. And it has to happen from the school perspective. So I'd much rather see that undertaken within the school community.
Joanne, do you want to have you a view on the demise of the officer at the centre?
You're right, Mr. Swinney. Parental involvement naturally should start in the school and should be, the big thing should be in the school. But I think there is an opportunity for parents within a local authority to have some kind of gathering together.
Yeah.
So that there is, because it's very difficult in a school environment to have, where obviously the focus is in your child in the school. It's quite good to step away from that a wee bit, and so you can focus on policies within the local authority or policies that are coming from nationally. And sometimes that's, you just don't have time, because obviously the focus in the school is the kids. And I think there is a place for a national, obviously. I'm not going to talk us out of having a national parent forum, and also for a local authority have involvement there too.
I think one of the things that a number of people are beginning to think about, and it's very much touching on your own input, that perhaps in a local learning community, so in your context in Falkirk, let's say that's the high school, the associated primaries, but also the whole range of agencies, both statutory and voluntary agencies that are around that community. Maybe they're having a forum, because actually we're talking about a 3 to 18 curriculum, the importance of early learning and childcare, breaking down the barriers as you come through. And I wonder if it's through the 2018 Act that Mr. Swinney is taking through just now, following that consultation is just completed, if there's something there for us to look at. I'm going to take one last question. There's a gentleman here just at the front, because we're beginning to run out of time. I think all our speakers are going to be available for the next wee while, so you can perhaps, if there's a burning question, pick it up with them. Yes, sir.
Hi, Stephen Blair. I'm the chair of a parent council from a high school in Wishaw, North Lanarkshire. So I suppose my question's to John round about pupil equity fund. So the extra money is warmly received, especially in our communities and some of the deprived areas. The more we can do to help, the better. I suppose the challenge for me when you talk about be bold, as a head teacher or a leadership community in the school, what I see more of is angst and anxiety about what can we code that money to, spending restrictions, procurement restrictions, the rules and worry to follow them, but also maximise how we could spend that money. So what more could we do, I suppose, across all our head teacher population and our school leadership population to allow them to be bold, you know, because they certainly would be if they didn't feel restricted.
Well, I think you raise, Mr. Blair, quite a substantial set of issues there, because they get to the heart of what I'm banging on about the reforms to Scottish education. I want head teachers to be like Lindsay Watt, who just kind of get on with it and don't feel inhibited and held back by some sense of, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. If a head teacher, in consultation with their school community, judges the thing my school needs is to do this, and they can evidence why that will be a good thing, I want them to have the confidence to get on and do it. Now, there may be some impediments in the way there about procurement. Now, I hear the word procurement all the time. Before I became the Education Secretary, I was 9 years as the Finance Minister. I know procurement inside out. And procurement can be used as a word to really inhibit people's creativity. And it's a menace at times, the way it's used. Now, there has to be good use of public money, of course there has to be, but we've got to also allow people to be creative and flexible. Now, I've had to intervene in a couple of local authority areas to say to them, look, you're applying far too many constraints here, and yours is one of them. Your area. I don't think my geography is letting me down, but it definitely is. But what we're doing to support head teachers is making available good evidence of interventions that can help to close the poverty-related attainment gap. We're going through just now, we've got 2 events yet to come in the west of Scotland, but around the rest of the country, we've had annual pupil equity funding events where all the head teachers from those localities have come together. The Education Endowment Foundation has come along and given a presentation about really internationally evidenced interventions that can help to close the poverty-related attainment gap. And they've been shared, there have been good examples from localities shared as well. So we can help the boldness by putting in place not a prescription to say you must do this, but a menu of options of things that can be looked at and can be assessed and considered that can have that effect. And I suppose the final thing is that I think most people have got to hear me saying, look, some of this might not work. And I make no apology for that, and I'll tell Parliament that. And I've told Parliament that already. Some of this won't work, but we should have the confidence in our professional community and our school communities to make judgments about these interventions and to use the resources wisely. And crucially, as long as we learn from the experience, we'll be using the money wisely.
Thanks. I think we'll need to wrap this part of the session up. We started with a wonderful example of curriculum for excellence in action, and well done. You know, those kids were just fantastic. And by the way, I thought whoever ever cast them did a really good job. And John spoke about his reform programme, and it is a reform programme. And I thought it was very, very interesting that Mary Venice actually said, transformation is an arduous process. Transformation is an arduous process. It's worth considering that. And also, along the way, mistakes will be made. It's not easy, this. If it was easy, somebody would have done it earlier. It's pretty tough. And as far as Lindsay's concerned, well, I agree, just don't die too soon, will you? Look, we're going to go upstairs now for a coffee. Could you take your coffee with you, please, to your workshops? And remember, at lunchtime, there is a drop-in session with the SQA. So those of you who are doing your nationals just now, no, seriously, the SQA are doing a drop-in session, as are SCQF, the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework. You might learn a few things there and take back to your particular parent forum and to your school. Thanks very much for the morning session. Thank you.